What else is in my bag besides the camera? Hey everyone, welcome to Keep Shooting Monday, number 110. My name is Greg Cazillo from Cazillo.com. Coming up in a little bit, had a really great question about, sometimes I just want to start over from scratch, but there's other times where I think it's just funny and I just need to leave it in. So this time I'm just going to leave it in. Anyway, had a really great question that somebody posted on the forum about what else is in my bag besides the camera and lenses. So I'm going to go over that stuff in a bit. Had some other really great questions posted on YouTube this week, so I'm going to go over those. Let's start off with a little bit of news. The first one was posted on DIY Photography, and it talks about how to use your iPad as a light table. And while I never really thought about this, as soon as I read it, I knew exactly how the guy was doing it. I could just, as soon as I read it, it's like, use your iPad as a light table. I knew it right away. Basically what happens is with the iPad or even on your iPhone, you could use the iPhone, you have a camera. And if you put a bright light source behind your negative or your transparency, you'll be able to get a decent preview of it, a larger preview. Obviously, it's going to be a lot better if you use an iPad rather than just your phone because the screen's so much smaller. But there's a feature you might not know about called invert colors. If you go to Settings, General, and Accessibility, you can turn that setting on. What I actually have set up is in triple click. So it's in the same place in Settings, General, Accessibility, then go all the way down to the bottom under Accessibility Shortcut. What that will do is that will allow you to use triple click on the home button to turn on and off the inverted colors, which I've actually been using for quite some time. Like when I'm browsing the web or I'm doing something at night and I don't want it to be quite as bright, that's when I will use that, and it'll invert the colors, make everything black. The white was black, black is white, so that it's not quite as bright and straining on the eyes. So that's when I'll use that. Really a great idea, and he just used his iPad to view and his iPhone as the screen, and he just bought up a white screen in the back, and that works just fine. If you had some kind of other white light source that you could use, that would be fine too. It would do the same thing. One other tip is he actually chose the black and white filter because sometimes the negatives, if you have a color negative, it might be a little bit off in color. It might be a little bit harder to discern what's going on. Personally, I've been looking at negatives for so long. I can kind of in my mind's eye reverse it and kind of see what's going on. The only thing sometimes is I'll have a hard time figuring out which person is which, so it might not be the right person, but I can see the image and I can kind of see what's going on just because I grew up in film photography and that's where I started. So you had to know how to edit a negative or do something with a negative. The only thing that bothered me about this video, and it's so funny, just me being anal, is when he's handling the negatives, he's just putting his fingers all over the negatives and both sides, and it's just, I don't know if it's OCD or what it is, but I just saying to myself, man, I wish he wasn't doing that. So if you are going to do this, I suggest leaving them inside of your neg sleeves or something like that, just to make sure that you don't get those fingerprints and all that good stuff on it, because over time, all those fingerprints and the I don't know what the word is, the stuff on your fingers, that stuff will over time start to degrade the negative. It's not gonna do it any good. So consider leaving it inside of the sheets. All right. Next thing thought I would talk about. Real quick, Samsung quitting the camera business. Do you care? Do you own one? Are you gonna miss them? Did you have an NX1? Do you think that anybody's going to notice? Let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear that. Something else. Another article that was posted on DIY Photography that was actually originally posted over on Photo Shelter's blog, where Time Inc. is quote unquote screwing photographers. This is interesting. Basically, what they're doing is instead they're changing up their pay schedule and the way they pay. So instead of having all of like a small amount of pay, like an hourly rate or something like that, ahead of time for your time, and then another usage fee in the end, depending upon how many times it gets used in their different magazines, they're just going to pay up front and there's no more usage fees. Now, in the commercial world, if you guys don't know, usage fees are huge. You can really make a lot of money with the usage fee on a photograph. It's no different than um, a movie expecting to get paid for it to play for it, or a music artist expecting to get paid if their music gets played on the radio or on Spotify or on Sirius or wherever. They all expect to be paid afterwards because it's their work, it's an artistic work. But basically, time is taking that away and saying, nope, we're done. We're not paying that anymore. And so that, in general, I think is a really bad decision, a poor decision. Basically, you're going to cut out the best photographers out there because you only want to pay a flat fee of $500 and no usage fees. And it's funny. I'm reading some of the comments and here and there, people, and it's amazing to me how little people know about usage fees outside of the commercial world. Someone had commented that the photographer, by the way, says photog, which I hate that term. I hate that fucking term, photog. If the photographer is paid daily and he is selling his time, and the results should belong to the client. That's wrong because it's an art and it should still belong to the photographer. So you're saying that no matter what image you shoot, it belongs to them? No, it belongs to the photographer. The government has said that. Every government around the world says that. It's upheld by laws, copyright laws, that kind of thing. So believe me, if we created it, we should still own it. If the photographer wants to work on spec and get zero unless the photo is used, then that should be an option. Well, basically, you don't work for them, or you say, hey, I want a different contract. Expecting to be paid for the time and wanting downstream benefits is not realistic. Sure it is. Someone commented over on Photo Shelter on this article that said, look, you have, if I bring $75,000 worth of gear, you want to pay me $500 for this? It costs a ton of money every year just to make that gear, and you're going to pay me $500 flat fee, and I'm not going to make anything down the road? That's kind of crazy, especially considering that the brands and the size of the magazines that this company, Time Inc., owns and uses. They have Time Magazine, Health, Cooking Light, Southern Living, all really big ones. Food and Wine, another really big one. Travel and Leisure, Sports Illustrated, another huge magazine. Fortune, People. They own these huge brands, these huge websites, these huge magazines. These are places that these images are going to get shown thousands of times. They're going to get copied thousands of times. Not only that, they're not going to be paid if it's not like they're going to be paid just this for the first usage. They're not going to get paid for any usage down the road. So you could put this in all 20 of these magazines, the same image of whoever. Like they talked about an image of Obama, and you're not going to get paid anymore on it. And that's bullshit. There's no reason for that. And I hope that we can somehow, as a community, come together and make this happen so that we can increase the amount of money that we're getting paid, and like I've always said, just increase the quality of our photography, especially my Medium post that I had talked about, of increasing the quality of our photography, which will increase the overall money that we're able to make. So shame on Time Inc. Hopefully we can get something going so that it'll get better, and so that we'll move on and be able to make the money that we deserve. Hey Gregory, I just bought a Fujifilm FinePix S for $50. What do you think of this camera? I've never used a Fuji camera, but this is actually interesting because I did a firefighting class this past weekend for aerial operations for a big, huge ladder truck, basically. And it was interesting. One of the things that he talked about was knowing your own equipment. No matter if it's good or bad or it's junk or it's the brand new greatest piece out there, learn your own equipment, know how to use it, and use it to its full potential, no matter what. And that's interesting because it really applies to photographers too. You know, I have some friends that still use, you know, really old like D100s, Nikon D100s, and old 5Ds, and um, you know, old T2Is, stuff like that, old Canons. There's nothing wrong with those cameras. Those cameras work great. Yeah, they're not the greatest as far as dynamic range, and they don't have some of the specs, and you know what I mean. But I think sometimes people just forget that they just sit there and they just stare at specs instead of actually doing something with it, working, shooting to their potential, and then upgrading when they can. There's nothing wrong with older equipment. Use it to your advantage. Do something with it. Learn with it, and basically learn your craft. Do what you can, and you'll get better results from it. Question from Jay. There is a Canon Pro 1000 out now that spec-wise may beat the Epson. How about a review of this printer? Well, Jay, I don't have any contacts at Canon to send over one of those printers as a demo unit. If you have any contacts over there, please send them over. I'd love to talk to them and work with their printers, do video reviews, all that stuff. I'd love to do a head-by-head, a head-to-head comparison of that printer and the P800 that Epson had sent over. Personally, I've always heard that you get more clogs on a Canon because the head on the Canon is heated, and that's how it actually puts the ink down on the paper. It actually heats up the head and heats up the ink in order to lay it down, whereas the Epson is a cold head. It has, I forget the exact term, it's like piezo or something like that. It's basically electronically, it's putting that ink down on the paper, which gives you less clogs. I was talking to one of the guys over at, who was that? Red River Paper. And they had said that if you do a lot of inkjet printing as far as your cards for the, like greeting cards, those, they said that the Canon, it was, at least in the older models, the better one to go rather than the Epson. But either one is going to do the same thing. It's going to end up, if you're not doing, massive amounts of greeting cards, then it's probably not worth it. They're just talking about, super high volume greeting cards, then it makes a difference. Personally, I love the Epsons. I think they're easy to use, great quality. If it's a tiny little spec bump, is that really going to matter? No, it's not. You're not going to see it. One has, 500 PPI higher or DPI higher. You're not going to notice it. Are you really going to be taking the photo and looking at it like this? No, you're going to look at it, 2 feet, 3 feet, 5 feet, 20 feet away where it's hanging on the wall. So, specs are, people get way too kind of crazy about specs on the internet, and that drives me nuts. Interesting one from Leo. What keeps me from sleep is every time I zoom in or out on a lens, I had to change the aperture just to have a clear picture. Well, Leo, what you are suffering from is something called a variable aperture in that 18 to 135 lens that you have. Basically, when you zoom in, it will probably go from, say, f4 down to 5.6 or 6.3, and then when you zoom out, you'll get back to that 5.6 or f4, whatever its maximum aperture is. I've said this for years that I think that camera manufacturers are actually doing new photographers a disservice by giving them a variable aperture lens, and because when you zoom in, which you're not thinking about when you're shooting that kind of a lens, when you're first working and you're first getting used to photography, that you're going to lose a stop of light when you zoom in. That means a lot of your photos are going to be a stop underexposed or a stop and a half underexposed. So if you're going to shoot in manual, you need to think about that all the time, or like you said, shoot in the aperture priority. Then you'll have a little bit better luck with it. Although if you are zooming in and out a little bit, you're just might need to bump up your ISO a little bit so that your shutter speed doesn't get too low and you end up with shaky photos and stuff that's out of focus from camera shake. So pay attention to that. It's just one of those things you just need to learn how to get around, and until you are able to buy better equipment. I enjoyed seeing what sort of clamps and camera support you use, and I was thinking it would be nice if you gave us a look at what is in your bag besides the photography equipment. For example, I usually have a notebook, the old-fashioned pen and paper type, some gaff tape, hand sanitizer, a few other odds and ends besides the camera and lens. I would love to know what you have. Luke, thanks for the great question. The first thing that I cannot live without is actually what I use day in and day out is something called OneNote. OneNote is from Microsoft. It is a great app. There's a desktop app for Windows and for the Mac. There's an iPad app, an iPhone app, and as far as I know, it also works on Android. It syncs immediately all of my notes in between all of my different devices, so no matter where I'm at, I can add screenshots, I can add text to quick notes, or I can add photos, I can add anything onto it. I use this for my show notes every day. It's funny, actually, a friend of mine posted, he's an up-and-coming sportscaster, and he posted all of his notes that he had written in a notebook, and he had highlighting, and he had taken pictures, and he taped them into of the players, taped them into his book, and he did all kinds of stuff. It was super crazy, and really took his time in order to make this happen, because he needed to have all of his notes right there to be able to say, okay, this player's name and number and stats and all those things, and kind of make it work for each of that. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I am so glad I don't have to deal with paper anymore. I'm actually kind of paper agnostic. So because of OneNote, and I love this app, bring it up there, add my note, add a voice note or video. I can do so many things in here. Draw right on in OneNote. Cannot live without OneNote. Love this application. So that's number one. iPad, of course. iPad or iPhone, I'll always take them around. Some other little tips that I have, my batteries. I actually keep the little holder that comes with the battery, the little cover, and when the battery is fully charged, I actually put the cover on the battery. And so I know that, hey, these two batteries, I pulled them out of my bag this morning, are fully charged. I can, at least the last time that I had charged them. If I was going on the extended shoot, I'd probably still throw them in the charger the day before, something like that, so that I know that they're topped off. But that's how I know which batteries are which in my bag, because they just get thrown in a single pocket. So obviously extra batteries. This is another guy that I can't live without. In fact, I'm looking at it, and it's actually starting to look a little dirty. I might need to either get a new one or send it through the wash, because it's starting to get crazy. But it's a Think Tank Pixel Pocket Rocket. I've had this guy for years. Could not live without this thing. Holds all of my cards, and actually I have another trick for this too. When the card has been shot, when I've shot on the card and I pull it out of the camera, I actually will take it and I will flip it upside down so the white side is showing, and that tells me that I can't use that card again. So if I'm shooting an event or a wedding or whatever it is, fast-paced, I know that I'm not going to grab the wrong card, because I have a habit of putting the card in and immediately hitting format without looking at the images, because that's just a habit. It's a good habit to be in, because you want to minimize any issues as far as the card formatting, because I might have had it in the computer, might have had it in the a different camera. I might have another photographer might have had it in their camera. I might have put it in my field recorder. Could have been in a bunch of different places. So I do that. Then I also do the same thing when I'm editing. So if I have a couple of cards out, or I'm sorry, when I'm downloading the images, so I have a couple of cards out of the camera, when they first come out, I will actually put them white side up, basically upside down, and then when I'm done, once I've put them into the card reader, pulled them out, I will flip them to the right side up, so that I know I've pulled those photos out of the card, off the card already, and it just allows me to basically just keep moving and not have to worry about workflow. It's just one of the stupid little things that I do. Batteries, I get all my AA batteries from Sam's Club, put them inside of a plastic bag just to make it easy, keep from, you know, stuff getting anywhere, and getting, if the battery explodes or something like that, I don't want it all in my bag, over my bag, so I'll just take a Ziploc bag with those. This is the best lens cloth I have ever used, and it's some from Nikon that they had a few years ago. Have not seen them again. I wish I could find the original manufacturer of the brand. Love these things. They're really, really high quality ones. I have 2 of them. I hope I can see them again. They just have a really great feel to them, and they do a great job. Nikon branded. Put my name on it just so that nobody steals it. Some other stuff that I have is my little trigger trap that allows me to remotely shoot my camera with the trigger trap app on the phone. GP1, something that I carry around, the Nikon GP1, so allows me, if I do want to geotag my images, I can do that whenever. Absolutely cannot live without my RS7 R strap. This is the fat guy edition because I'm a fat guy. I have the Burt extension on it and set up perfectly for me. It's funny, I was actually somewhere about a week and a half ago, and there was a big guy. You know, he was rounder than me, whereas I'm taller and not quite as round, but I'm still fat. Anyway, he was using one of the sport ones, and it was like way up here under his arm, and I didn't get a chance to go over and say to him, hey dude, pick up one of the RS7s and the Burt extension. It's so much more comfortable. Maybe I'll see him again sometime out somewhere and I'll tell him about it, but this is so much nicer for fat guys. So grab that. New extra fasteners, which are the little thing go up underneath the camera. Gotta have that. And the last thing that I always carry around, I always have this on me. I actually carry it on my hip. But if you don't want to carry anything on your belt or anything, just buy one so that you have it in your bag. This is a multi-tool. It has a pair of pliers, it has a knife, it has screwdrivers, it has scissors, all kinds of stuff on here. And this thing is indispensable. I will always have one of these. I've been carrying one of these since I was like 17 years old. I can't tell you how many times I've needed it and used it, and to be able to fix stuff right away, or, you know, just in general every day, or to photo shoot. I can't tell you how many brides' dresses I've used this thing on. I've actually had a couple of them. If they start to get worn out, then I'll replace it, or I'll put the old one in another bag or something like that. So I have a couple. Love this thing. Cannot live without it. Always have it. And I actually hate it when I go on trips and I'm flying, because I forget and I still have it on my hip, and then I need to check it. And I hate not having it on my hip, but hey, that's the way it goes. So what do you guys have in your bag? I'd love to hear the other stuff, the other weird stuff that you guys have in yours, might be carrying around. What do you think I might be carrying around? Obviously, this is just like my general everyday bag stuff, not including any of my more specific bags, like the grip bag that I carried last week, or video stuff, you know, like that. But this is like the general photography stuff. So love to know what you guys think of what I have and anything else that is going on today. Please share the show. Always want more views, more comments, more everything. Thanks, guys. Keep shooting. See you.